Last weekend at Silverstone marked the halfway point of this year's F1 season. Silverstone is a circuit that always manages to give us some sort of chaotic entertainment, regardless of the current F1 hierarchy. Although the McLarens had a dominant 1-2, the rain saw loads of midfield teams make pushes for point-scoring positions, as well as several nervous breakdowns from the frontrunners. As we've quickly reached the halfway point of an extremely interesting 2025 campaign, there are several developing storylines that are beginning to take shape as the season becomes more and more established. First and foremost, we have to talk about Max Verstappen. The Dutchman has single-handedly dragged Red Bull to where they are in the constructors, taking pole positions, podiums, and race wins, despite an operational window smaller than MBS's cock. He's been a major factor in the first third of this year's F1 season, but it all fell apart at the Spanish Grand Prix, which ironically was supposed to be Red Bull's saving grace coming into 2025. After the mental breakdown in Barcelona, Antonelli's bowling in Austria, and the spin in Silverstone, he's scraped a measly 29 points in the last 4 races and seen the championship gap widen from 25 points to an overwhelming 69 points. Nice. To put that in perspective, Nico Hülkenberg has scored 31 points over this 4-race stretch for Kick Sauber. As title number 5 and car number 1 slip away from Max's grasp, a new window of opportunity has entered the fold. Rumors of Max to Mercedes were rampant during last season's controversy with the Horn Dog files, but they never materialized because of Red Bull's pace at the time. However, with the Red Bull's race pace dropping off a cliff, Verstappen could be donning a black race kit this time next year. This could completely shake up the grid as we know it and plunge Red Bull into the depths of hell. Let's consider a situation where Max does go to Merc. There are 2 pathways from here. 1, Mercedes lets go of George Russell. Russell then goes to Aston Martin, Alpine, potentially even Red Bull. I think the fit at Aston would be best, though I'm not sure they'd be keen to let go of any of their drivers right now. Then there's the chaotic route of pairing Russell and Max, instead opting to drop Antonelli after 1 season. Well, now, hold on a minute. Let's just talk about this. Yes, Kimi is 18, and he has shown a lot of potential in various conditions. He has more podiums than Lewis Hamilton, sprint pole in Miami, the wet weather comeback drive to P4 in Australia. He's done a lot of good this year. And that's not even getting into how much work Toto Wolff put in just to get Kimi into Formula 1. However, the 26 regulations look like they will favor Mercedes significantly, which opens a window of opportunity where both cars could be vying for the world title in addition to battling McLaren for the constructors. Should this be the case, I do believe Mercedes would seriously consider dropping Kimi in exchange for pairing 2 of the grid's best drivers, with experience and multiple regulation cycles. I'm not saying this would be fair to Kimi, but it certainly is an option. I'm not sure where Kimi goes from there if they do drop him, but I think a completely realistic option would be for him to go to Ferrari as a reserve, especially if Lewis thinks 26 is going to be his last year. Maybe Kimi sits behind Lewis for a year, learns behind one of the best of all time, and then jumps back into Looking to the Red Bull side of things, I am of the opinion that Max leaving the team could be one of the best things to happen to them. On paper, obviously it's a tremendous loss to have a 4-time world champion and one of the most dominant drivers the sport has ever seen to leave the team. But Max's influence has steadily become toxic. The car is very clearly only competitive when Max is behind the wheel, and a variety of other drivers in the past 12 months have struggled to even extract simple points from the car. Checo was not a bad driver. Liam is not a bad driver. Yuki is not a bad driver. When the car is tailored such that only one driver can barely extract race wins and performance from the car, that is a team issue, not a driver issue. I think that if Max walks, Red Bull could roll out a 26 squad of Yuki and Hadjar for the shortest ever driver lineup, while promoting Arvid Lindblad to the V-carb seat and keeping Liam Lawson as a measuring stick for the rookie. I do genuinely believe that Yuki and Isak leading the new era Red Bull could be an extremely competitive squad, especially if they can get the car right for them. When the season started, Williams looked like they were running away with P5 in the constructors, racking up an impressive 51 points through the first 7 races led by Alex Albon's strong drives in Australia, Miami, and Imola. They were causing chaos for the front runners, and the Sainz-Albon driver pairing looked to be one of the grid's most formidable. However, over the last 5 races, Williams have reverted back to last year's form. Carlos Sainz started struggling massively in qualifying, and the car became less durable than the Miami Lego cars. Between Monaco and Silverstone, the team has scored a whopping 8 points and suffered 4 retirements, including 3 consecutive DNFs for Albon at Spain, Canada, and Austria. Critically, the team has already announced that they have discontinued development for the 2025 car after Miami. The biggest good surprise of the season so far has to have been Nico Hülkenberg, who it feels like every race drags the Sauber from the back of the grid into the points. After a floor upgrade in Barcelona, the car became more equipped for combat. I mean, the change in pace was clear as the old veteran started racking up 4 straight points finishes with P5 in Spain, P8 in Canada, P9 in Austria, and at long last an incredibly well-deserved podium in the rain and sunshine at Silverstone. Bortoleto himself has been solid as well, qualifying extremely well for what the car can perform and collecting his first points with a P8 finish in Austria. Sauber has racked up 35 points in the last 4 races and is now comfortably in the midfield fight. Racing Bulls and Aston Martin aren't much further behind with 36 points apiece. Isak Hadjar was a revelation to start the season and instantly garnered fan support after his emotional crash on the formation lap in Australia. With 5 points finishes this season, he's been leading the charge for VCARB, but has recently seen a dip in form after threats of a demotion to the Red Bull second seat. Aston has seen spurts of performance, with Alonso finding a rhythm after having a torturous start to the season. Maybe his new mustache is absorbing all the bad luck. Lance Stroll has been on bullshit per usual, but he still had his Ayrton Senna wet weather masterclasses in Australia, Silverstone, and the Miami Sprint to keep Aston relatively competitive. Haas are extremely inconsistent right now, and it doesn't help at all that every single time Ollie Behrman has a good qualifying, he also has a grid penalty for something stupid from FP1. The pace has definitely been there at times, and I think Ocon has been doing a fine job in securing points for the team when opportunities have been on the table. Ultimately, it is about 26 for Haas, but I certainly think there's an opportunity for this year if they get something right. As for Alpine, what an absolute fucking disaster. And to think that people thought this team was going to be leading the midfield or at least fighting with Williams for the top in the midfield. This team has re-implemented Flavio Briatore as a de facto team principal, which nobody seems to be able to explain, by the way, how this fucker got back into the paddock after being banned for life. Banned for fucking life. But whatever. Pierre Gasly is doing whatever he can to try and save this sinking ship, but the A525 seems to be this season's wheelie bin. Jack Doohan was sacrificed for our sins after literally 6 races, or was it 5 races? I don't know. They didn't give the guy a chance at all. And Franco Colapinto looks like a shadow of the young promising driver that shocked the paddock last season. It's all a mess, and it doesn't look to be heading up anytime soon. After shithousing their way to P6 last season, it looks to be a regression back to what was, and a very bleak future. Somebody please save Pierre Gasly from this fucking mess.
I have the seat full of water, like full of water. Must be the water.
Meanwhile, in the front 4, the standings for the constructors seems to be pretty set in stone. McLaren are definitively the team to beat, with Ferrari strengthening their grip on P2 over Mercedes, who still cannot figure out how to develop a car that doesn't blow up its tires at the first sign of warmer temperatures. Verstappen F1 Racing are comfortably in P4, with an uncertain 2026 as already discussed earlier. Ferrari looked to have a little bit more pace at Silverstone, giving everyone a sliver of hope that we could be spared of a manufactured Lando Norris win. But alas, we can have nothing. Both drivers made a mistake in the last sector and slipped down to P5 and P6 after showing so much pace during the weekend. In a sick twist of fate, the drivers let the car down after a season full of car troubles. It's a beautiful summary of Ferrari this season. The promise of Leclerc and Hamilton reaching unimaginable heights, but in the end, it's just a new form of self-torture. Charles has been as strong as ever this season, and it's evident the car is simply not quick enough. He's still been able to get front row starts, and even take podiums here and there. Recently, his form has been dipping with critical mistakes in Montreal and Britain. You really have to wonder if the Ferrari fuck-ups are really starting to break him. Now that's a video idea for another day. Anyways, as for Lewis, he's been fine. He's definitely struggled much more than I think we all expected him to, but it's still probably too early to declare a verdict. It was always about 26 for Lewis, as these regs have just been difficult for him to get a hold of. However, early returns suggest that Ferrari may have made a mistake letting Sainz walk in favor of the 7.5-time world champion. There have certainly been flickers of the Black Panther we once knew. The drives in Imola, Austria, and Silverstone were extremely strong, and it's a shame he doesn't have a podium in the Grand Prix format, but he's also performed strongly in the sprints, with a win in China and a podium in Miami. The demon is certainly still in there. I just hope it can make it to 2026 intact. Lando has done a phenomenal job bouncing back from his spastic moment in Montreal, getting maximum points heading into the break before we go to Spa. While I personally still think this title is Oscar's to lose, Lando's form is excellent for the championship, and it keeps us from having to watch another season of a driver running away with the championship before the summer break. That said, the win in Silverstone was frustrating for me personally. I thought the 10-second time penalty for Oscar was extremely harsh and likely done to ensure a Norris victory for the British home crowd, which was extremely annoying because it took away from how meaningful that win was and how strong he was all race long. It also presented us with the first time Piastri's steely composure has wavered all season long. That said, it's a long season, and this could just be a moment that passes by rather than a pivotal championship moment. Man, I can't think of a time recently where a British driver won a controversial British Grand Prix to slash the championship gap to his foreign rival in a tight-knit championship fight where the non-British driver had been stronger over the course of the season. Wait, and in that season, it was a season right before a regulation change. Ferrari didn't win a race all season long. A top 4 team fighting Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship got a race win by their veteran driver, whose seat was under scrutiny, and a podium in that same race by their young star in the making on a historical F1 track. Said young star in the making got a pole position on a janky circuit that nobody likes, but bottled the race win to the British title contender, and a fan favorite driver dragged his green wheelie bin to a podium after chaos in the front. My God. Does this mean Michael Massey's gonna come back to fuck over all of Britain and create a new toxic fandom that is already unbearable on social?
Lotus, Lotus, Lotus 72, Lotus, Lotus, Lotus 72, é máquina do tempo e na velocidade não tem igual.